on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
Here in Canada, it's very easy to do. Our boards really don't care, and it's dental professionals outside of the office and beauty professionals outside of the office. The United States, little different. Different states, actually, as crazy as it sounds, different states are preferring that a beauty professional does their own teeth whitening business over a dental professional. Beauty spas, dental clinics, some of these locations are really pushing just over dehydrated results that do look like Ross from Friends, right? Like that fake look. If we were educated more properly about the absorption process, we would understand that, in 48 hours when that remineralizes, they're going to fall back massively. But then also, if we educate to the patient that, we're going to start chairside, and if you want to go brighter, then we're going to send you home with some great take home to extend onto it.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 482. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for being with us today. And we have another great show for you. I feel like we've done several whitening episodes over the years, and they've all been really good. Usually, though, there's a very specific angle or take that we have on them. But in this episode with Rachel Hicks, we talk about kind of like the bigger picture, something that's going to apply to every single hygienist, no matter where you're at. We talk about all the whitening protocols, effectiveness of lights, should you have a light, should you not? And kind of in the same vein, the custom trays, the prefab take-home trays, the chairside whitenings. We talk about the different strengths or percentages of the whitening gels, post-op instructions. I mean, just anything that you could think that you might need to know about as far as whitening goes, we pretty much tackled it. And if we didn't, Rachel's definitely available to answer some more of those questions. So special thanks to Rachel for this episode. She also sent a lot of links for some the resources that we talked about. Those are going to be in the show notes. So when you get a minute, make sure you go check that information out. And then I don't think she talked about it in the episode. I think we talked about it afterwards, but she also has a line of whitening products that if you're interested in kind of seeing what she has, there's also a link for that in the show notes. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, really great episode. Really enjoyed it. I think this is going to be something that pretty much anyone can learn from. And quite frankly, it's something that maybe like it's an episode you want to bookmark or take notes. Okay, that's it for this intro. Thanks so much for listening. Enjoy this episode with Rachel Hicks.
A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome in, listeners, to the interview portion of the podcast, joined today by Rachel Hicks. Rachel, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I can't wait.
Man, so we're going to talk about whitening today, folks. Rachel, if you'll give me a quick introduction, because I know that you do a lot in the space of whitening, podcasting and talking about it, just all that. What are you up to in this space?
Yeah, so I am kind of like how you're a pioneer in the podcast industry for dentistry. I like to think that I'm a pioneer in the whitening industry for dentistry. So I'm a trained dental assistant and have been in this scope since 2015, and it's been a long, winding road. Ended up jumping into teeth whitening, opened the first commercial space in Canada back in 2021, and then has opened a actual sourcing company. So now a full-on distributor on the side of that, and really just educating, speaking at dental conferences, chatting with dental professionals, really discussing the truth on whitening. Because Andrew, do you remember in school, anything that you were taught about teeth whitening?
Oh, I feel like there was maybe like a breakaway segment for part of 1 hour one time or something like that. But to be fair, I wasn't a great student either. So I apologize to my instructors. If you're listening to this, no, Andrew, he spent 5 days on this. There's units on this and wasn't paying attention. So no, that's my recollection, because as hygienists, we're not really taught about like the cosmetic-y side as much unless it's in our restorative courses. It's most about prevention and therapy, right? That's where our focus is. Obviously, that's not what the patients want, though, right? Like the patients want all these other things. I'm sorry to derail this conversation because I know that we have like an outline that we're going to try and follow. But I'm just so curious though because you had mentioned this, but like dental professionals are starting more than ever to start their own like whitening companies. Like, what are your thoughts and feelings on kind of even outside the dental office, but not even at home whitening scenarios and situations?
Yeah, so here in Canada, it's very easy to do. It's huge. Our boards really don't care. And it's dental professionals outside of the office and beauty professionals outside of the office. Easy peasy. Canada is just doing their thing. The United States, little different. Different states, actually, as crazy as it sounds, different states are preferring that a beauty professional does their own teeth whitening business over a dental professional.
Isn't
So,
that crazy? Oh
right?
my gosh.
So, a hygienist or a dental assistant, let's say it's an RDA, they could get reprimanded harder in some states than Sally the esthetician just because they hold a license, even though wouldn't we rather our RDAs and our RDHs doing their hard-earned skills, making money for themselves, providing great care, and yet they're the ones who are like, "No, you can't do that. You have to keep your hard-earned skills just in the office."
Like all that education that you have in the oral cavity like means nothing. But these people that can tweeze your brows, like they are the ones that we want whitening people's teeth. Like that's the key.
They don't care. It's wild. Public health does not care. It's crazy.
Yeah. So let's get into this a little bit because I think that also the patients are the drivers of a lot of this. Like the people that are starting their own businesses outside, even I'm kind of a younger person in this career, probably I think about 16 years. I think now I'm in it. I feel like not a lot of dental offices are offering whitening, but I feel like our patients are wanting whitening and then they're kind of left to their own devices. So can we talk about kind of like what has happened in like the dental space and why are our patients maybe not getting the care in the offices that they need?
Yeah, it really all comes down to even within, I would say, the last 5 to 10 years, our cosmetic industry has grown so much, right? Everyone wants a more youthful look. They want to have just like a specific perceptive of how they look. And studies show that the smile can make you look the most youthful and can build your most confidence. So I'm sure you've probably had patients in your chair where they're like, they need all this work done and it's like totally, totally not a whitening candidate, but they're like, I do not care. I just want my teeth whitened
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
right? So it really has just come down to vanity. We really do want just a lot more specific cosmetic enhancements, and teeth whitening is non-invasive and it can make a huge difference very quickly. Like you can get a brighter smile in under 60 minutes easily. And unfortunately, our dental backgrounds have kind of like, as we just talked about, we don't really, in school, you might do a bleaching tray, but you don't ever really talk about chairside whitening. So we
Mhm.
have a few companies who have held this space for years. They're dinosaurs and they just push their product. The dentists just think, okay, well, there's this brand name that's been around forever. I'm just going to bring them in. But it holds up 90 plus minutes of chair time. They have to charge $500 to $700 to get the service covered by the time they bring in the product. They pay their hygienist and then they hold that chair time. So then what ends up happening is you buy your equipment, your product starts to expire because your patients are booking it because in this economy, $500 to $700, you're not getting that covered by insurance, but then also right now a lot of your patients can't afford that. So then the office just stops offering it. So then your patients are like, I want my teeth whitened. And your office is like, oh, I can make you some bleaching trays. But your patients are like, I want that TikTok moment. I want to come in. I want to show my audience. I want to be under that
Mhm.
laser light. And they want that instant gratification. And our dental clinics are like, nope. And the beauty industry was like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And they're doing it. So I hope that kind of breaks down is why has dentistry kind of lost it? It's been cost, chair time, and the other thing I didn't mention, sensitivity.
Hmm. So we're going to pick up on sensitivity here in a little bit, but I'm curious though, because are these beauty clinics and things like that, are they offering the full range? Like, so for example, in our office, we have like the prefab trays, like the take home ones, the custom trays, and then you have the ones that are in, chair side. Are they able to offer all of those? Are there any other options that I missed that we don't offer, but maybe that that are out there?
Yeah, great question. So typically, what our patients are looking for is chairside for that quickest look. So then the beauty industry is offering it in two different ways. So if they are offering it quote unquote legally, I mean, it is unregulated, but cosmetic teeth whitening insurance will only cover up to 25% of hydrogen peroxide, which you might think, "Oh, that's not that strong," but that's Zoom comparable. Zoom is 25% peroxide, so that's really strong. So they are able to offer up to 25% outside of the office. So when it comes down to what are they really doing differently, it does really come down to typically they aren't using the best LED light sources, so they're doing long contact times with high heat because they're really low budget lights that they're getting off of Amazon, and it's causing things like pulpal inflammation and dentin hypersensitivity on a higher level. Not that we aren't getting that at the dental office as well, but usually the beauty clinics just aren't flagging that as much. So usually it comes down to what's the difference is if they are doing it correctly, they're staying under 25%, as in dental offices, we can go up to 40%. And then they are just using really low quality heat sources, which can cause some farther damage for sure.
Okay, so let's pivot. We're gonna go down the light, the laser, the heat sources here in just a minute. Let's start though first. You mentioned 25% hydrogen peroxide. Is that also 25% carbamide peroxide is also like the statute, or like, is that written into law? And if so, we have a lot of younger listeners that maybe haven't been around the industry long enough. Can you go through like the hydrogen peroxide versus carbamide peroxide concentrations, equivalencies, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is such a fun topic because still to this day, even hygienists who have been in the field for 40 plus years still get caught by this. Carbamide peroxide is not equivalent to hydrogen peroxide. So what is a really big peroxide number is for carbamide that a lot of companies sell and catch you is 44% carbamide. So they'll get you to use it either chairside or they'll even be like, oh, you can have your patient take this home. And your patient's like, oh my gosh, like, look at how strong this is. So carbamide is a form of hydrogen. And to get the actual breakdown of what the concentration would be apples to apples, you always divide carbamide by 3 to get the equivalency of hydrogen. So 44% carbamide comes under just about 15% hydrogen peroxide. So that means that really, if you're using a 44% carbamide, you're not even using a 16% hydrogen. And kind of the baseline of when you need to lay down a barrier or not, a gingival barrier, is around that 18% hydrogen level. So if you're using a 44% carbamide, then that's an area when you wouldn't be using gingival barrier in most cases, and it just shows you that it's really not that strong. So that gets you all the time. It's hydrogen, the number is the number, but carbamide divided by 3 so you can actually compare how strong you're giving your patient.
Is the almost 15% or whatever as strong as a 16%? I mean, is that more like equivalent? I mean, efficacy thinking like for our patients, is that the same effectiveness?
Exactly. And the nice thing about carbamide and hydrogen is that they work a little bit differently, actually. So, a hydrogen, if you were to lay down, let's say, a 16% hydrogen peroxide, it's going to release really quickly. Statistically, hydrogens only have an active life of about 3 hours. So, when I say active, it does get a little bit confusing. So, if we release, let's say we have our tooth and we bleed our gel out onto the tooth, it only has a quote unquote active life of about 15 to 20 minutes. So that's why when you do chairside whitening, you are removing and reapplying multiple times during a chairside session. So we think that the peroxide's done, right? Like once it's not active, we get it off, it's done. But really, if we think of the tooth structure, obviously our tooth is continuing to absorb it, and most of our stain is actually intrinsically. So with hydrogen intrinsically, that peroxide's going to work in the background for about 3 hours, as carbamide continues to work in the background for about 6 to 12 hours. So usually what is happening more and more as more studies are being done is that chairside and take home, you're starting to work with them both more together or blended, because why wouldn't we want that extended working time intrinsically, especially for our difficult areas like our gingival margins? I'm sure you notice with your patients or maybe even on yourself, we're usually darker along the gingival margins. Our cuspids are usually darker. So there are definitely reasons why something that's going to take longer to break down and oxidize intrinsically where those stain molecules are works best. So at the end of the day, is the stronger amount really quote unquote better? Instantly, it might give you a little extra like glam, but really in the
Mhm.
long run, we kind of want that extended working time. So kind of that slower and lower absorption opposed to that quick
For sure.
release.
For sure. One of the products that I've seen kind of come out lately is, well, in the dental office, we have, the big light, right? Depending on, what company you use and things like that, there's a light or sometimes there's not a light. And then I've also seen, though, products lately for like take home stuff or things you can buy off the shelf that have like the little tiny lights in there. And part of me feels like it's very gimmicky. Some of this feels like it's like, oh, hey, I'm trying to pretend like we're in a dental office and let me give you just like a light bulb and you're going to feel better about all this. So can you either debunk the myth or, I mean, or confirm that it is a myth about this whole light business?
It's so, so funny because, well, first things first, we need to clear up that 99.9% of the time, you're never using a laser. It's just an LED light. I know a lot of people think that laser teeth whitening technician or laser whitening. If your office has a laser that they're using for other things, then yeah, they might not buy another LED light. They'll just use their laser. But typically, whitening is done with an LED light. And is it bullshit? That's the real question, right? Like, does it do anything? As you mentioned, the take-home lights, no, there's no intensity off of those. They are just there for show more than anything, especially because 'cause you're attaching it to the tray. If we think about it, is it actually gonna penetrate through the tray? No. So, the take-home stuff is definitely thanks to TikTok and Instagram. But the chairside lights, this is where it gets spicy because it's kind of divided. There's lots of clinical dentists who think that, it's just a placebo effect. You don't need LED lights. And then there's a large group that shows that, yeah, you do. So at the end of the day, is if we think about it, no, obviously the LED light is not removing stain in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely
Uh-huh.
not. It's not
Yeah.
removing stain. So no, it's not whitening or bleaching. But if we think about even just outside of whitening, like think about when we're doing a restoration, if we're bonding for Invisalign or for orthodontic brackets, we're etching for dehydration to help with better absorption, right? So the LED lights are there to help dehydrate the tooth so we get better absorption. So if you are working with, let's say, a company, because like you said, there are quite a few chairside companies in the dental world who are like, nope, LED lights are BS. You don't need them. Our product doesn't require it.
Mhm.
But I mean, I work with clinics day in and day out, and they are working with those companies, and they're like, my patients aren't happy. And if I read on the side of the box in little writing, it says, for accelerated results, pair with an LED light. So at the end of the day, what does the LED light do? It's going to dehydrate quicker so you can get faster absorption to get your patient that instant gratification. That's
Mhm.
the whole point of a chairside session. And from there, depending on what type of gel you're using, some companies are actually photosensitive, meaning that they actually won't oxidize unless it's light contacted, but not as common. But typically, what the lights are doing is providing that dehydration for best absorption. And even if it's not a photosensitive gel, if the intensity on the light is correct, it's going to oxidize it out quicker, because the quicker your gels are oxidized, then that means that you can provide a shorter chair time. And that's huge, and something that the dental world really needs to start paying attention to, because more and more studies are showing that these long contact times of 3 to 4 rounds of 15 minutes under that LED light source, and just the high peroxide levels that clinics are laying down, like the over the 25%, it's causing pulpal inflammation, and it's also causing our intense dent and hypersensitivity. So lights can be your best friend. We want to dehydrate, absorb quick, and do the fastest contact rounds we can. 2 rounds of 12, that's huge. That's becoming the new standard. Then your patient's done, out the door. You've reduced your sensitivity, your pulpal inflammation, and your patient has that smile that they wanted.
Okay, so let's then talk about that patient expectations, because that I think our patients come in and have bombed out teeth and it's just like black nubs, and they're like, "Oh no, hold on, you're gonna bleach my teeth and I'm gonna look like a movie star." But there's also patients who come in with a relatively lighter shade, and then they're like, "Oh, like I've never like responded well to bleaching or to whitening." So how do we manage those expectations for our patients? Like, what should we be telling them, and like what should they be expecting?
Yeah, and this is so great. And hopefully, our educations, regardless if we're DAs, RDHs, DDSs, really start pushing this, is understanding real whitening. So, not just fake dehydrated results. In our Wilkins textbook for clinical hygiene, that has a great article, especially the new edition, that talks about false whites. And that's what we have to be careful about, is that beauty spas, dental clinics, some of these locations are really pushing just over dehydrated results that do look like Ross from Friends, right? Like that fake look. If we were educated more properly about the absorption process, we would understand that, in 48 hours, when that remineralizes, they're going to fall back massively. So, our steps have to be done different chairside to do it safe and effectively. But then also, if we educate to the patient that, you know what, we're going to start chairside, and if you want to go brighter, then we're going to send you home with some great take home to extend onto it. If anyone in your audience is interested in learning, this textbook you can get on Amazon, and it's an evidence based perspective. It's called Tooth Whitening by George Pettigrew, and it has so many incredible clinical trial studies in it about whitening, and they talk about the jump start technique. So chairside, then following with take home. So that's really what it comes down to, is just educating our patients that we need to start chairside, get that instant gratification, get you, like you said, somebody might be starting really dark, somebody might be starting really light. They might not need that extended take home, but if they're really dark, they would. And then that will give them a longer lasting brightness instead of just that fake 24, 48-hour bright. And then also from there, it's going to allow them to understand that those filters on social media, like, everyone has a different tooth shade genetically, and not everyone can hit that B1 shade. So it does come back to setting expectations clinically, getting better trained internally for staff members on how to address kind of how somebody would absorb and what their expectations would be. And if they're even a candidate for whitening, I mean, like you said, if someone comes in with obviously not a tooth structure that can absorb well in any way, shape, or form, and they really, really wanted to make the investment, then of course that would be a completely different discussion around different anterior restoration options, right? Indirect or direct. So yeah, it really comes down to education internally to then educate externally properly.
It's interesting the way that you said that, because I think, at least in the practices that I've been a part of, I think we're doing it wrong. So rather than doing the chair side first and then the extended care with the trays going home, we do it almost the opposite. And I think part of it is a financial obstacle that we put in our own way, right? Like we're trying to be not drug dealers, but let me give you a taste. Let me give you a little hit of this, and then you're going to come back. And you're going to want the big score. And is there any clinical effectiveness to that at all? Because it kind of sounds like it's not really as effective that way.
I was listening to one podcast, and this clinic was in Europe, and they did do it that way. They did do take home first, then chairside if the patient wanted to. But kind of as you mentioned, I think it really comes down to doing it reverse, because why wouldn't we want to do the stronger first to remove the most stain that we can so it does the brunt of the work, and then what's left over should be your low and slow at home, because it's obviously going to be a lot easier to remove after you've removed most of it. So you would think that you'd be providing better results because you're removing the bulk, then finishing up instead of starting low and slow and then removing. I mean, I guess I'd be more concerned about possibly sensitivity, since you're going
Hmm.
low and slow at home first, then you're adding on top of it. If you're doing it reversed, you're going high first and then low and slow, where your patient can do every other day, or they can maybe do it just once a week. Like, they have that 2-week flex time while their tubules are still open. So that's the number one thing I'd recommend is, if you're just doing it at home without chairside first, your dentin tubules aren't really fully absorbed open because you haven't dehydrated them properly. So if you're piggybacking off of it, you're going to get those better results, you would think, from an absorption standpoint, since you're opening, then absorbing for the next 2 weeks instead of doing it reverse. I feel like there's that little bit of blockage where you're probably just doing more extrinsic stain than intrinsic stain.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, and I guess that the thing about patient compliance though is you want to demonstrate like the biggest wow, right? Like if you're doing like if we're doing like a crown or whatever, we're not putting a temporary on there that's like completely out of occlusion. That's not even close to what the thing's going to look like, right? We try and do our best with our temps, and so probably the same idea with this is like we want to give them the best, and then hey, here's some maintenance things. We want to give them the SRP, and then here's some periodontal maintenance things. Like that's always the way it goes in dentistry, but for some reason we just flip flop this one backwards. All right, I have two more questions. We kind of got to get to these ones really quick. We'll talk about sensitivity because I think managing sensitivity, I don't want to necessarily go into like our patients can be sensitive because it's kind of patient specific, right? We've documented that for so long. But are there better at home remedies or better things, whether it's going to be toothpaste or gels in trays? What do you recommend for sensitive, like the hypersensitive patients?
Yeah, carbamide based only, because if you're doing straight hydrogen based gels, you're going to get more sensitivity because it's releasing faster, right? So we're shocking. It's pretty rare to get sensitivity off of carbamide. So I would say carbamide, if that's chairside or take home, would be great for somebody who knows that they're going to be sensitive. And then, of course, pushing those sensitive toothpaste 2 weeks prior and 2 weeks after, like if that's your pro enamel, if that's your Sensodyne, etc. Just something that has that potassium nitrate to really make sure that it's getting into the tooth structure. And then also making sure that your gels are formulated properly that also have those components in it. That's huge too. And then you can lay down some sort of potassium nitrate as well. So there's lots of different things that you can do. Is just making sure that you're sourcing the best thing for that patient.
And then are there, other than like managing sensitivity, are there other instructions, like post-op instructions that you give your patients?
Yeah, if you're chairside, honestly, if you're doing chairside properly, it should be pretty rare to get sensitivity. If you're doing short contact times and you're also using proper gels. So, not personally, it's pretty rare that we ever get sensitivity, but in outside of our area that we do ours, then I would say it's just, yeah, making sure that you do have your potassium nitrate handy. I know lots of clinics will close with fluoride varnish too if they would prefer to do that, but it's really reducing your contact times and reducing your gel strength too. Don't be using 40% hydrogen. That's going to be huge.
What about like drinking coffee or wines or anything like that? I mean, do you usually say, hey, like 2 weeks, like abstain from all of these things? Or you're like, yeah, just go to town.
You know what's funny is, for the longest time, I was on board with the typical study research that said that, in the first 24 to 48 hours, avoid staining foods and drinks. But the more and more I think about it, and the more that I've been listening to some different articles, if we think about it, if we were to drink an orange Gatorade right now, our tooth isn't going to be orange. We might have a hue from our tongue or maybe extrinsically, right? But we're just going to brush that off. So would we really absorb stain if, like, if I were to drink coffee right after I whiten my teeth? I should try this. would I really absorb stain, or would it just be extrinsically on the outside that I could just wipe off? So I feel like the verdict's out. I need to kind of play around with this more. Long term, like what we're used to hearing is avoid staining foods and drinks. But the more we think about it, like, will it actually make a difference? So what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think also with the new protocol that I'm gonna try and do is if you're having the trays, like, for the next 2 weeks anyways, yeah, you're right, it's not gonna be a big thing. I do think that there's probably gonna be some staining. I do think that it might penetrate deeper into the tubules that we might think about, but with good home care, I think we're probably gonna be alright. But I do look forward to those before and after pictures of you doing it. Let's let you be the guinea pig. You report back onto the show, let us know how it goes, and then we can kind of edit and clean this one up. But Rachel, I'm so sorry we're out of time, but thank you so much for being here. I know that this time goes by too fast. People aren't gonna they're gonna have more questions than we were able to ask you today. If they wanted to reach out to you, like, how can they find you?
Yeah, jump on any social media platform and check out Mentor Rach, and would love to chat on if you're trying to figure out a better system for your clinic, or if you're thinking about, going rogue and doing something on your own. I would love to help you out.
And tell me about this Whitening Wednesday I see in your background.
Yes, so every Wednesday I do release a podcast episode. You can find it on all platforms, and it is talking with dental professionals who own their own teeth whitening clinics.
Oh, that's fascinating. Interesting. Well, thank you again for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.